Thank you, Omkara. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunday service on this beautiful day. Thank you so much for choosing to worship indoors for a while before you go outdoors and continue to worship, I hope. For those who might not know me, I'm Bharati, this is Pavani, and it is our joy to be with you today. I'm going to begin with a very short reading from Whispers from Eternity. This is, as many of you are aware, this is Yogananda's book of prayer demands and poems. This is number 134. Bless me that I may perceive thee through the windows of all joyous activities. Look upon me and cheer me always as I engage in my daily duties. Let my every action, whether waking, sleeping, or dreaming, be sprayed by the fountain of thy presence. This is excellent timing for this particular topic about service and meditation, contemplation, because yesterday was we celebrated anyway, a Rajasi Day at the community. And as those of you who were there know, it's just a day that's full of joyful service. And one of the, as we had our opening circle there yesterday and Vajra made a few opening remarks, I just thought, wow, if he could just stand up here this morning and say what he said, that would take care of everything. But it gives us an opportunity as a group of devotees working together to practice that, how we can serve and at the same time have our meditation. It's like having your cake and eating it too. You know, you're thinking, well, in the normal material world, that's not possible. But we're very fortunate in that we don't have to spend our time entirely in the material world. So I appreciated that very much. So service in this context is really about another word, Sanskrit word for it is nishkam karma, which is action without attachment or desire for the fruit of one's actions. So serving without expecting anything in return, even a particular outcome. And I know for many of us, certainly myself included, this is a big challenge. You know, we do certain things and we're happy to do it, and we have something in mind, the way we would like it to be. And it's often a significant challenge to let go of that expectation. What can happen is we find ourselves on the waves of enthusiasm, we're feeling good about what's happening, or on the other hand, we might feel like so downcast and frustrated by the lack of the result that we would like to see from our efforts. So it's just such an opportunity for us to start to overcome that. And the way we can do that, as I was looking at the extended versions of our reading in Rays of the Same Light and also in Promises of Immortality, which are books that are all available in the boutique, and they go into this in a little more depth. But one of the things it was saying in one of the things I was reading about how we can do our activities with a deep consciousness of God. And it was talking about, one thing that came up was, great, but how? How does one do that? And this little phrase really caught my attention. It said, strengthen your grip on reality by sharing all that you have to do with God And that really gripped me all right, that sharing, strengthening your grip on reality, because when I first read that, I thought, well, wait a minute, now, reality is in the details of what we're supposed to be doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it and all that. And then I went, whew, well, that's one reality, but not necessarily the one most of us would choose to live in. And we do have that choice always, of course. But by sharing all the details of what we see that needs to be done with God, we can get a better grip of the true reality, which is that we are vehicles, really, and God is the doer. So all these things we take responsibility for, whether we think we're wonderful for being able to do it or we feel like abject failures because we don't feel like we did it adequately, it's not us. God is acting through us, and so we can, just as we get in that flow, as we accept that reality, then service, whatever it may be, can become very joyful for us. One person who really exemplified this, that we've heard about many times, most of you probably have, Frank Laubach, who was a missionary for a time in the Philippines, and what he chose to do with his time was to try to think of God all the time. And he started out by saying, okay, once an hour, or once every 15 minutes, I'll check in, make sure I'm thinking of God. And through time, he came to the point where that was his consciousness all the time. My first experience with this, my first conscious experience, was many years ago. I was doing a program that's now called Living Discipleship down at Ananda Village at the meditation retreat. And it was a month long at that time. And every day we'd have our 3-hour morning meditation and breakfast, and we'd have a short little instruction period where we got our daily assignments. And I remember very clearly our assignment one day was to think of God as much as we possibly could. And they would ring a bell, because before cell phone, beepers. So they would just ring a bell every 5 minutes. And when we heard the bell, we were just supposed to look at our thoughts and see where is our consciousness in that moment. And so my assignment for the day was to make this trench so we could put some wires underground up there. So I'm not a very happy camper in the heat. Of course, this was just in the beginning of September, so it was pretty hot still. It was very dry. The ground was like rock solid, and I was there with a pickaxe and my little assignment. Okay, here's the way you need to go, and it wasn't all that deep. It was not like I would think of a trench, but it was a groove really in the ground. But it was such a great experience for me, because in my kind of normal reaction to a situation like that, I would be out there doing, one whack, and then I'd be going, oh, moan, groan, sweating, and all that. But by consciously trying to keep my consciousness elevated and just be with God throughout the whole time. It was probably only 20 minutes of doing that. I don't really remember, but I do remember that when I shared my thoughts, when I'd start feeling like, whoa, there's sweat dripping off my brow, I could just say that to God. It's like more as an observer instead of experiencing the heat, the thirst, the sweat in the way I normally would, to just experience that with God and going, oh, sweat, okay. But it was just so wonderful to me to feel in that flow of divine energy. there was, Yogananda one time was just talking about the balance between meditation and service and how they can support each other. And he was saying when the balance is right, then your meditation helps your work and your work helps your meditation. And seeing God as the doer in every circumstance, at least as much as we can, is so helpful in that way. It helps those two things not be separate, but be mutually supporting and actually to become one, so that all of our life becomes a meditation, all of our activity, all of our contemplative times, all can be part of the same thing. One thing that I was, in some of the, as I'm preparing for service, I'm reading all these different things because I'll think, well, I know somebody said something about that. And sure enough, somebody did, lots of somebodies, and trying to find those little bits and pieces. I'm just reading through all kinds of things, and it's so much fun for me. So anyway, it's somewhere in what I was reading, it mentioned how service is giving energy. That could be one definition of service, is giving energy. And I was thinking about how, well, it doesn't ascribe to that in any particular form. It's not like serving by doing this, serving by doing that, or even serving by doing. It could be serving by being, but that giving energy. Being in that consciousness, and of course it's not us giving the energy, but letting that energy flow through us to others. And as it mentioned in, I think it was the affirmation reading, just lost my thought. Oh, I know. Who is it we're serving? And one of the things I was reading yesterday was Gyanamata's book, or the book about her, and with some of her writings called God Alone. Gyanamata was one of Yogananda's foremost disciples, and she was a truly amazing person. But she liked to think of herself as God's servant. And she had many roles in her time at Mount Washington, and indeed throughout her earlier life as well. But whether she was preparing food, or whether she was doing housekeeping chores, or writing letters to devotees who had questions, meeting with others of the women who were monks there at Mount Washington, whatever her particular duties were, she tried to always see that as service to God, recognizing that there's God in everyone. Everyone has that in them, whatever else they may express in their outward circumstances. So by doing that, by seeing her service to everyone, anyone, as service to God, that really helped her to expand her consciousness. There was a sweet story of Yogananda in his later life. He took on a lot of karma of other people, of different disciples and so forth. And so at one time he was having a great deal of trouble walking. One day he was going to go out in his car somewhere, and so a group of the monks came and helped him into the car. And he just very sweetly was saying to them how much he appreciated their kind attention. And they were all going, "Oh, no, Master, really, it's you who are helping us." And he just smiled at them and said, "Well, God is helping God." It's interesting to me, Martha's, well, Mary's too, but Martha's attitude in the story we're told, because there in her house was Jesus. I mean, it's right there in front of her, and she's going in the kitchen and getting in a snit because her sister isn't helping her. And who knows what all was really in her mind. It's so easy to, say a particular thing about someone in a circumstance when we don't really know what was going on. However, I think of myself in many situations where if I could only see, if I could only realize in that moment that indeed it's God sitting in my living room. So if I'm in the kitchen preparing some snacks or something, I need to still have my consciousness there. And in fact, God is sitting in our living rooms and in our kitchens and everywhere among us, because everywhere we go, everyone we meet is God. I'd like to just close with another short reading from Whispers. And I encourage you to just bring your attention to the spiritual eye and feel this poem. Father, teach me to perform all my work only to please Thee. Let me feel Thee as the electricity of life, moving the machinery of my bones, nerves, and muscles. In every heart throb, every breath, every burst of vital activity, teach me to feel Thy power. And we'll have more music now.